Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning,
So,
ma'am.
who shall be presenting recap in the next class? Tomorrow, Aisha Shahid and Abhishek Washni. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Aisha. You were absent yesterday.
Sorry for that.
दैट्स ओके कल हम लोग एक बस सर ज्वाइन नहीं कर पाए तो कल इत्तेफाक से आज रिकैप नहीं है तो एंड व्हाट अबाउट अभिषेक
Yes, ma'am.
Abhishek you are there okay and you were also not there yesterday so you both have to present the recap in the next class okay tomorrow
Okay, ma'am.
all right Aisha and Abhishek Parvez sir is joining now. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, may we start with the recaps?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Lavnesh and Aris, can we start, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Shall I start?
Yes, please start, Lavnesh.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, in the previous class, we continued our discussion on planning and its limitation through our personal intelligence and what were our expectations last 10th and what our contemplations 5 years down the line. Today, how we are attending these classes in MBA. Some of us were very clear from the beginning that we wanted to get into MBA program, but many of us have switched over and today and experienced change in aspirations. That is, plans went under change. that is over the period of years we have been influenced by inside as well as the outside environment. Sir then shared his life story when his father sent him to AMU in 1980 to pursue MBBS. So, being a good student, his father had high hopes that he will make it to MBBS. He did prepare well, but unfortunately couldn't make it to MBBS. So he got into BSc. Having a senior who was who was a debater inspired him to face the audience and pushed him to the stage. Seeing his friends who actually made it to MBBS in their hectic life, he thought that whether that it was actually the life he wanted to live. So second time he wrote the exam half-heartedly just for the sake of his father. But deep down he has lost all his interest in MBBS. Finally, in the third year of his BSc, he told his father that he do not want to continue with MBBS. And under the influence of a friend, he decided to go for civil services and opted MA in history, which was such a best experience. Became such of a good experience in his life that he became the second topper of the class. When he met one of his friend who got into MBBS in the third attempt and suggested sir that he should do some sort of diploma which could land him a job. Sir didn't like the advice in the initial time, but looking more deeply into it, he decided that he should have a fallback option in case UPSC didn't work. So with a heavy heart, he wrote the MBA entrance exam and left MA straight, although he still continued to prepare for the UPSC exam and managed to clear his prelims and was supposed to appear for the mains in the month of November, but incidentally a vacancy came up in the month of October in the department. So sir, after completing his MBA, he wrote a GRF exam and got into teaching, which gave him the financial security which he needed most at the time, since he promised his father that he will be on his own after three years in Aligarh. Uh, he started enjoying his life as he started enjoying his life as an academic and has never looked back. So the learning from this life story is that plans go under change. Life is what happens when we are busy making our plans. There are two ways of strategy. The first mode is the planning mode, which we have already discussed. That what are our aspirations, what are our visions, and what we want actually to achieve. This is the planning mode. We first plan and then we act. The code think before you leave is a planning mode. The second mode is the crafting mode, which was coined by Henry Mintzberg. So strategy making can take two forms. First form is the planning form, and the other is the crafting form, in which the strategy gets evolved and gets its shape, which is to be discussed more detail in today's class. Thank you, sir. That's all from my side.
Okay, thank you, Lavnish. Can we have the other one?
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, very much.
Yes, sir.
But
Good
why
morning,
there is
everyone.
so much of flicker?
Sir, maybe connectivity issue, sir.
Start, okay, start.
Okay, my name is Mohammad Aris, and I am here to present the recap of last class. So we are discussing planning, and the sir started the last class with a question that now we all are attending the MBA classes, but if we think of the time when we used to be in class 10, then how many of us had actually thought of attending MBA classes 5 years down the line? So there are some people who were very clear from the starting, but many of us have switched over and have experienced the change. To make it more clear, sir has given his own example that when he joined AMU in 1980, his father wanted him to pursue MBBS, and he did prepare for it and wrote PMT, but unfortunately somehow he couldn't make it. Then after that, under the influence of one of his hostel mate who has done POC in science and switched over to BA history with a conscious mind of doing UPSC, sir has opted for MA history and MA history. And after that, another incident happened that he met with one of his old classmates who has made it to MBBS in his in his third attempt. When he got to know about sir that sir has opted for MA History. He ridiculed sir for doing it, that why he is wasting his life and so and so. And after that, he advised sir to do some diploma so that he barely get any job. And this incident broke sir. Incident broke sir, and sir had thought of having backup, and sir wrote the MBA exam and made into it. After that, sir also cleared the JRF exam, and in this process, there exists a vacancy in the department, and sir was the only JRF holder then, and sir made it, and sir got that job. After this, when sir get into teaching, sir started enjoying every bit of it, and this was very clear by his saying that sir says कि टीचर जैसे जैसे बूढ़ा होता जाता है वो जवान होता जाता है. Then we have discussed about the two important things: the role taking and the role making. In role taking, we have discussed that the others specify roles for us, and we and we accept it. And in role making, we carve out our own roles. Then we have discussed the two types of strategy making. The first one is planning. We have so far discussed about it, the types of planning: short term planning and long term planning. We have also discussed the format of planning, the descriptive format and the descriptive format and the graphic format, and we have discussed the positive and negative impact of it also. Then there comes the second term, which is coined by Henry Mintzberg, which is termed as crafting. And crafting, actually, the crafting is to make or produce something with skills. So the only difference between manufacturing and crafting is that in manufacturing all the items are identical, but in crafting no two items are identical, all are unique, and we will discuss this today more. Thank you, sir. This is all from my side.
Thank you, Aris and Lavnish. Both of you did a good job. Actually, because of some technical problem, I missed the initial part of Lavnish presentation. So I'm sorry for it. But whatever little I listened to in the end, it happened. I feel he covered the content in the right earnest. The only issue which I felt was at some stage some pronunciation related issues. So maybe he needs to revisit his language proficiency, especially his pronunciation of some of the words. Mostly sa and sha sounds. These are the sounds which were not. They got intermingled at places. So that is something which you can take care of. And overall, Aris, also you did a good job and presented the whole idea in a very natural way. But to me, I think your body language part needs some reflection. There is no need to move back and forth so frequently, isn't it? Maintain a stable, firm posture. That would do good to you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So actually, I narrated that story, my life's story, a part of my life's story, just to help you reflect on this question that in life you will often encounter contradictory ideas. Like, for example, yes, in the previous class, we discussed this idea that we have a adage which says think before you leap. Now that supports the notion that in life we have to first plan and then move ahead, isn't it? And which sounds very logical. But we will also encounter another adage which says action drives thinking, or hand is the cutting edge of mind. Now, how could hand be the cutting edge of mind? Actually, our mind, the adage is conveying that only when we act, we soil our hands, we dirty our hands. When we actually get down to doing things, then our minds gets activated. Now, which idea to you sounds, more realistic? or true? The first one or the second one? Can we have a few responses on this? We think and then we act, or we act and then we think?
We first plan and then move ahead, and also when we are moving ahead, we are also capable of seeing this.
Keshu, you are not audible, please.
Sir, I'm audible now.
You can write your response on the chat box. Can we have some responses either on in chat box or you can switch on your camera and speak? So Keshu feels that both seem right. So Tushant also feel that we first act and that yes, that's a very politically correct response. Depends on the situation. So the response that I have got till now, actually the situation is that both the responses seem to have an element of truth, isn't it? In life, we do something, and when we do something, we activate our mind, and then that activation. So it's more of a like a kind of cycle, you know. We act, then we think, and then when we think, we again act. And this time our action is a more refined act because some thoughts have gone into it. And then this process of refinement goes on. So it is not a linear process actually. It is a cyclical process which moves on, in all direction, in a circular move, and it could be an upward move if we are consciously, working for our goals. So now let us put it in a perspective, and then I will request Zareen ma'am to run the slide also once we have carried out the discussion. So if we reflect on, or if we take that context of my life story which I shared with you, and put it in a perspective, in a theoretical perspective, what happens is that we have our intended strategies. What is an intended strategy? Something that we feel like doing. So we have a lot of intentions. For example, I elaborated to you this intention of mine that I wanted to do an MBBS when I came over here. Now, do we work on all our intentions? Because as they say, ideas don't move mountains, bulldozers do, isn't it? So we have to actually get down to the field level and start working. Then only our ideas get implemented. And we all know that we have a lot of intentions, good intentions, but often we don't work on all our intentions. So a major part of our intentions remain unrealized. But there are some intentions for which we work. For example, yes, I had a intention that I had to secure myself professionally. I had to have a fallback option. So with that thing, I deliberately worked for my MBA entrance test. Although the time available with me was very short, I was writing my MA previous history exam, and immediately after, let us say 8 or 9 days, the MBA entrance test was scheduled. But I worked very hard. So we deliberately put efforts. So there is an intended strategy and then there is a deliberate strategy. Things for which we work. Now it so happens that when we work, is it so that all our intentions get, all our strategies get realized in total? For example, I wrote my civil services exam and I wrote it with efforts. I did qualify this prelims, but I could not finally make it to the mains. So that part remains unrealized. So cycle is like this. We have our intended strategy, then we have our deliberate strategy, and then based on those efforts, we have our realized strategy. So this is what happens at one plane of life. Then there is something else which is happening, which I talked about as crafting mode, or there are some things which we do unconsciously in life without too much of thought into it, maybe as pastime or something we enjoy doing just like that as a leisure activity. For example, my leisure activity was, in those good old days when even the leave aside computers, the television was not there. So I have seen that phase also. So in house, what was the mode of entertainment? The mode of entertainment was that often, for example, my mother was an avid reader. She had a stock of books with her, and she also used to subscribe to a number of magazines. And she was a voracious reader. Whenever she would get time, she would read. And then sometimes she would read it for us also, the interesting parts. So 4 of us, we brothers, 3 brothers and 1 sister, we would sit around her and then would listen to what she has to read. And that unconsciously, generated in all 4 of us a love for literature. In fact, the Urdu poetry, the passion which I have for it, I have borrowed it from my mother. So, there is one thing which is happening at one plane and there is another thing which is happening at another plane. That is the unconscious things which we indulge in. A lot of actions, and then those actions, when repeated over a period of time, they form a pattern. So when I came to Aligarh, my problem was a kind of identity crisis, for the simple reason that I came from a Hindi medium, and there was no way, and I had that vanity of a good student also, pride, some kind of pride, okay, yes, I am the topper of my district. But here I was nobody. So how do I make a mark? And then I realized that, what I can do is I can participate in literary competitions. and that is when I started participating in the Bedbazi competition that we organize in Aligarh. You know what is Bedbazi?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Bedbazi, to those who have no background of Urdu, let me tell you very simply, it is Antakshari actually. It is like Antakshari but in Urdu couplets. So that became my pastime, a very good pastime, and I had already had a good repertoire of couplets which I imbibed from my mother, and I had that diary with me, and each encounter in Bedbazi would refurbish my diary further, and I would have some additional couplets, and this kept happening. So actually, when I was in MBA, I never thought that I will specialize in issues like soft issues of management, like communication, motivation, and those things, leadership. And during my MBA, actually, because I had a science background, and my batchmates, they advised me that you should specialize in operations. So I opted for very hard subjects of MBA, like materials management and quality and systems analysis and those kind of subjects. But finally, when I selected my research, that was in the field of stress management. So, and that study of human behavior, which we do unconsciously in literature, that proved to be a very good background for me. So actually what happened, that the realized strategy which I finally had was a combination of what I had originally intended, and second, what happened to me in course of life. Isn't it? So there was an emergent strategy which sort of shaped up just like that. So I will request at this stage, Zareen ma'am, can you please run the
Right, sir.
PPT if possible at this juncture?
Yes, sir.
So I've titled it as Craft of Strategy Making. So what happens in this? Can we move on to the next? So this is what I have already shared with you in brief. Actually, this is Zareen ma'am's creation. So she prepared a roadmap for me in this form, which but it doesn't include that part. After completing my MBA, I did not opt for a regular corporate kind of job because I was aspiring for civil services. So in between 87 and 88, I prepared for civil services exam, but it so happened that this vacancy cropped up, and I was selected as lecturer in 1988, and I have never looked back since then. And for last 32 years, I'm into it, isn't it? And as they say, choose a job that you like and you never work for a day. So trust me, I have never worked in my life because what I'm doing is my passion. So next, please. So I was talking about this strategy part, and Henry Nisberg has put it like this. So what is happening? We have our intended strategy, then we make efforts. So actually unrealized strategy would be at two levels. We have our intended strategy, but we don't work for all our intentions. I was very deeply influenced by my brother, who was an exquisite singer. He is blessed with a golden voice, and he would enthrall the audience with when he would deliver. render his ghazals, or when he would sing a song. Or I've seen him performing in Kennedy Hall, and there would be pin drop silence when he would sing. So I also wanted to do something in music, but I tried also. I contacted an ustad, bought a harmonium and all that, but somehow I never worked for it the way I should have worked. So that remains unrealized. Likewise, civil services remains unrealized. So, but there is a part of it which is realized. So that's the first part of it. And then there is a bottom part of it which is depicted in the form of these arrows. So there are a lot of actions we indulge in unconsciously. And when these actions are repeated over a period of time, I told you about my involvement or engagement with Urdu poetry. And actually now when I engage classes, my realized strategy, if you look at, it draws heavily from my emergent strategy, which was because of the actions which I was engaged in over a period of time. Right. So our realized strategy is a combination of what we had originally intended and second, what happens to us just. So does it make sense now? Is that what happens with most of us? Which part generally dominates in us, the upper part or the lower part? Is it 50-50? One of you said it depends on the situation. Generally, what has been the experience? Is it like 50-50? Sushant feels that the lower part dominates. Dominates, can it be 100%? Then feels 50-50. No, my question is, yes, I understand that it could be a combination, but let me put you in a tight corner. Can it be 100% on either side? And what are the implications? So if for example, the first part dominates to such an extent that it is 100% planned. And the converse, when everything is emergent, 100% of it, we flow with the tide, as they call it, or move like a rudderless ship, if I can use that term, जहां हवा ले जाए. Actually, life has its own surprises. So if we trust too much, the 100% trust the upper part, and we have a goal and we work towards that goal and realize that goal, fine. It indicates that you have a sense of direction, you have a sense of control over your destiny, and you are moving away with a very definite plan. But it also means that we are a bit uh, rigid about the emerging opportunities. As I said, life has its own surprises. So, for example, when I went to IIM Ahmedabad in 1992 for attending a 1 year long teachers training program there, it was a very ambitious program of Government of India whereby the young teachers in university setups were sent to premier management institutions for training. And I spent 1 year over there, and there I met an Alig who became like my father figure. His name, he was a Parsi gentleman. He's Alhamdulillah still there, leading a peaceful retired life, almost in his 90s now. So he became a kind of father figure, and he was a expert on stress management. He was a Larsen and Toubro Chair Professor of Organizational Behavior in IIM Ahmedabad. He has done his PhD in psychology from Aligarh AMU psychology department. So when he got to know that somebody from Aligarh has come, so like a senior of Aligarh, he called me over. He said, "Oh, kahan ho?" And I went to his home, and then his home became my second home there. And like a senior, he would often command me to do some things. Like, for example, he would conduct many executive development programs in the MDP center there in IIM Ahmedabad, and he would ask me to assist him. So he would administer various instruments, and then my job would be to calculate, tabulate the results and give it to him in cumulative form, and then he would interpret those results. And I would just sit and listen to him, seeing those interpretations. So as a result of it, my interest in stress management as a field got aroused. I had no intention of pursuing my PhD in the area of stress management till I met Dr. Pestanji. So should we remain close to such opportunities which life throws at us? And life throws those opportunities at every one of us. Some of us grab it, some of us are not able to grab it because we are busy with our own things. So this meeting with Dr. Pestanji was one of my life's turning point. Now, let us talk about the bottom part. If this dominates, 100% emergent, is that a good scenario? If we leave everything to life and we just move with the tide, then also yes, it would be very rare. In fact, it would not be desirable. Not only it would be rare, it is not desirable. Some of us just move with the tide, but then this indicates that we are like a rudderless ship, which is not a good thing to. We need to have some sense of direction, some sense of control over our life. So if the bottom dominates, it means we have no control. But if the upper part dominates, it indicates lack of learning from the emerging opportunities. So I think it has to be a combination. It has to be a combination, but gradually, I think a mature person would be one who builds on the opportunities. So, can we have Zareen ma'am the next?
Yes, sir.
So these are the two models which I have shared with you, the planning model and the crafting model. So as per the first model, strategy making is a very formal and structured process, controlled process, a very conscious process, which has distinct steps. Like we will analyze ourselves, we will then analyze the environment. So we will carry out internal analysis, we will carry out external analysis, and then accordingly we'll develop strategies which would be implemented through detailed, budgets and programs and all that. So as per this, the strategist thinks orderly, then he analyzes the outside world and then finds out his own strengths and weaknesses and then crystallizes the strategy. So the core is we first formulate and then we implement. We think and then we act. But in the crafting model, the focus is the strategy evolves, is crafted. And I've already discussed the term craft, what it indicates. So craft indicates some kind of dedication, your involvement. So it is not a very analytical process. It is a more of a intuitive process. If you look back at my own life, many things which I was doing, I might not have been able to make sense. Like for example, this Professor Pestanji's invitation to me, okay, why don't you assist me in my executive development programs? I just responded to it because it was a senior's call and I cannot refuse. That is how we have been trained in AMU. We respect our elders, seniors. So I just complied. But then when I complied, a whole world of opportunities opened to me. So if you ask me to describe this process, it was a very fuzzy process, if I can use that term. It cannot be a very orderly process. But yes, involvement, my commitment to a senior of mine who was like an elder to me, one of my own family member, and this feeling of intimacy and harmony which we develop when we work on an idea, for example, Urdu couplets. So how this develops through your years of involvement in something, years of experience and commitment. So how would you say in this process the formulation and implementation cannot be so clearly segregated. They actually merge. It's a very fluid process and it's a very creative process. That also is very important. And actually action drives thinking. So if we were to visualize this process, Dr. Zareen, can we have the next? What do you get from this picture which I have presented before you? It is like a potter working on the wheel. When the potter sits on the wheel, does he have a very clear idea how the pot would take shape? Maybe he has an idea, but a broad idea. But an exquisite potter, when he starts taking when the clay with which he has worked for years, when he touches it, it starts taking shape. And when it starts taking shape, maybe initially he might have thought that he'll come up with an oval vase, but finally he may end up with more of a cylindrical vase, and he may be happy with that because he fiddles with the ideas here and there, and then finally he's such a dexterous person because he has worked on the clay. In fact, Henry Mintzberg's wife is a potter, and Mintzberg drew this analogy from her work. And one day Mintzberg asked her, how do you create such exquisite potteries? And she said, I have a feel for the clay. That was the expression that she used. When I touch it, it starts taking shape. So life actually is also like that. All of us are molding our life. As they say, there is a beautiful couplet, मेरे हाथों की लकीरों के इजाफे हैं गवाह. इजाफे is extensions, isn't it? मेरे हाथों की लकीरों के इजाफे हैं गवाह, मैंने पत्थर की तरह खुद को तराशा है बहुत. तो वो जब हम तराश खराश करते हैं, उसी से एक खूबसूरत प्रतिमा, एक ऐसी मूर्ति निकल के आती है जिसे लोग फील लाइक सीइंग. So this is what we all do or should do with our life. And that is why each life is a unique life. No life story can be a repeat of the other one. There are no copycats. Because each one encounters different situations and responds to those differently, and that is how the life gets shaped. In fact, when I was discussing this analogy in one of the class, one of my oldest student, he said, sir, there is one more point which we may have missed out. He said, when the potter touches the clay, you know, the fingerprints also leave their imprints on the pot. And he said the implication is that fingerprints actually indicates the destiny. So there is a role of destiny also in this entire process. What we call luck or whatever is the term that we use. And some of us who are, spiritually inclined would value this concept of destiny, which we all share. And that is why various religions, like even in Bhagavad Gita, you have the concept of Nishkam Karma. Nishkam Karma is आप फल की चिंता ना करें. आपका काम है efforts करना, कोशिश करना. Because results are in somebody else's hand. We may never get what we want, but we will always get what we need. So with that faith, we move in life. So I stop here. If you have some comments, you can write it on the chat box or some observations on what we have discussed. Does it make sense now?
Yes, sir.
So I think before we wind up, I will share with you. I request you to share with us in the next class your own reflections in the form of one word, one very not very long, something which you can write on the chat box. Your key takeaways. It could be in the form of a couplet, or it could be in the form of an adage, or anything which you write, but one sentence as key takeaway of today's class. Not today's class, but last two classes that we have had together, where we talked about these two modes of strategy making. Okay. So I look forward to your response, because it seems many of you may be presently trying to absorb the ideas. So I want you to reflect, mull over it, and tomorrow come up with your own crystallization or key learnings or takeaways from these last two sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.